Hi again, everybody. Today we're going to talk about organization and what to do after you take those pictures. How do you find them again? This is tough, but well worth listening to, well worth thinking through, just like everything else in photography. Whether you're shooting film or digital, you're going to need a system to organize your pictures, aren't you? This lecture is going to take you step by step through that process. At least the process I use, which is really pretty efficient. I started taking photographs back in the early 80s, a long time ago, about when I was graduating high school. By the way, the word workflow didn't exist back then in photographic circles. Here are a few typical pictures from that day. Kind of hate to admit it, but these were all taken on film from a much more simple time. And I have to say, I was just shooting pictures of my college roommates mainly for fun. We just do goofy things, whatever I thought was interesting. These are not pictures that I am showing you, hoping that you emulate them. There's no redeeming value in these pictures at all, quite frankly. Mainly I was just shooting cheerleaders to try to impress them, and they just found it creepy. So I took my camera with me everywhere. I found that I liked it. I really must have liked that cheerleader. She's in a lot of the pictures. I went on spring break trips to North Dakota, drank beer, held tumbleweeds in front of my head with my friend Chris Burbach. There he is. Or maybe that's me. Bad idea going out standing in the middle of a herd of buffalo. They don't like it sometimes. That's really a dumb idea. I thought that standing on your head was fascinating because photographs freeze time, actually. So I did a lot of that with my friends. Anyway, don't try that at home and don't emulate it. It's not worth it. Back then, though, I stored my negatives in very simple form in a plastic page in 3-ring binders. I'd label them on the top to see what they were. Maybe there'd be a date on the spine of the binder, and that'd be about it. To this day, they're all stored that way in my house in boxes down in the basement. And they're safe and sound, actually. Easy to find, easy to go through, even though it's very, very simple. So next, when I started working for National Geographic, I switched to slide film. Slide film. So how do you store those? How do you find those? My slides, the best of them anyway, are stored in file cabinets. The best, or the selects, are hanging in these cabinets, with my seconds or not so good images down in the basement. I have a special slide room. It's just cool and dry down there. I estimate I have 500,000 slides down there now from all the time I shot slide film for the Geographic. Each of these boxes holds 100 rolls, and the ends of each box are marked with a Sharpie marker to indicate how many rolls are inside. I put them in this cool, dry room, and everything's good. I can still go back to those slides, even though there's some of them are 25 years old now. Look at those pictures, and the colors are fine, and I can see what's on there in each slide without the aid of a machine. That's very critical. You know, to be truly archival, you must be able to read your pictures without the aid of a machine. Think about that. Think about that. Today with digital, I don't do as much agonizing over exposure anymore, and none at all over the processing. It's really a dream to shoot pictures now. But the rest of this has gotten vastly more complicated. It is so complicated and expensive. Now, I shoot flashcards now instead of film. Who knows how long this will last? We'll probably just shoot direct to hard drives eventually. But I can tell you immediately when I'm shooting this way on flashcards, I can tell whether the picture was exposed properly. I just check the histogram. I check the viewing screen on the back of the camera. That instant feedback is a miracle to me. It is so much better than shooting film, and it does make my pictures better. It sure does. But it comes at great cost, one that nobody wants to talk about. This is one of the dirty little secrets of photography. It comes at several costs. What kind of costs, you're asking? Well, this is a server that costs a lot of money. You see, instead of cardboard boxes now, my pictures live as ones and zeros on a server. Backup drives and even some DVDs, they're scattered about. And this is far more expensive than anything I've had to deal with in terms of file cabinets and cardboard boxes. DVDs, I don't even know that we're going to use DVDs anymore. And I just took this picture last year. I don't even think we use them anymore for storage. You know, since I'm not a technical guy and I shoot all the time, I've had to hire 3 full-time employees now to help me keep my archive straight and to get these pictures out to the world. 3 people. Yeah, 3 people. We market these pictures as stock in exhibitions. We prep them for various speaking engagements I do, for books, and certainly for magazine stories. That's a lot of people working. They're working in there. That's a lot of money. So what's the lesson in this for you? Whether you're shooting film or digital, organization is critical to you being able to find your pictures again, months or even years later. It is so critical. Let's start with some basic principles that apply to both film and digital photography. Here's a system for what you've shot. Okay, this is a good system, I think. It applies to everything from shooting or to filing or downloading, keywording. When I shot film, I always knew which rolls were fully exposed because the tails of the film were wound fully back into my little canister. We don't have that with digital. But with digital, I know which cards are full because I place them belly up in the card wallet. Belly up. One side of the card usually has a brand name, number of gigs on it, that kind of thing. The underside of the card, I call the belly, there's usually a space to write information. I don't write anything on there but my name and my email, my phone number. For me, belly up means this card's been exposed, yet not downloaded. Now, other photographers will use a system like they'll have a green card wallet for good to go ahead and shoot this, a red card wallet for stop and download these before you erase these cards, you idiot. You know, we've all done this. If we shoot enough, we get confused and erase a card we've just shot. My goodness, the horror there. But, you know, we all have our systems. For me, I put my cards belly up. That way I know it has to be downloaded yet. If you do accidentally erase a card, there are rescue programs. You can go in and rescue pictures on that card if you had to, but it's time consuming, and time is money, isn't it? Time is something none of us have a ton of. So a system to track your images is crucial in digital once you ingest them. When I shot slide film, all the rolls from a story were numbered and kept in the same box. Pretty easy. Or a series of boxes. With digital, all the images from each story have a date, a subject name, and sequential number in the file name. When going back to a past shoot, I can tell at a glance the client I shot it for, when I shot it, other things that were shot at the same time. With digital, you need a consistent, logical system to file your images and then stick with it. Very important. With slides, I filed my selects, the really good stuff anyway, in plastic sleeves hanging from racks inside file cabinets with a drawer or two dedicated to each story, alphabetical. Just like books in a library, okay? We still haven't quite found the silver bullet for organizing digital images, but here's what we've come up with so far for world headquarters of Joel Sartore Photography. Now, all images from the day of shooting on the same subject go into a folder named this way, with the date, year first, then month, then day. So January 31st, 2012 would be 12 for the year, 01 for the month, and 31 for the day. So it would be 12/01/31. Then a single letter, S or A, indicates for me whether I shot it as stock, just for myself, or assignment for a client. And then finally, a title at the end of this little naming string, a very short description of the subject. First, let's say I shot pictures of my dog, Muldoon, on a given day. Here's our naming string right there. Let's say I shot pictures of Muldoon on a given day. That's not a good picture to really point out to you. That's worse. If these were shot on the same day, that is much worse. Okay, that's a good one. We'll use that one, okay? Let's say I'd shot that on a given day. I'd go to download that. So photographs of my dog Muldoon from January 31st, 2012 would go in a folder named 12/01/31_S_Muldoon. It's as simple as that if it's a stock picture, right? This date and subject system has worked really well for us, and I shoot a ton of pictures. Wow, 2 to 3 terabytes a year. A terabyte is over 1,000 gigabytes, by the way. Now, each image in the folder uses a folder name as the base of its file name, followed by a sequential number. So now, if there's 150 pictures, the files would be numbered 12/01/31_S_Muldoon_000001 through 12/01/31_S_Muldoon_000150, like that, okay? So you've gone from frame 1 to 150 pictures of Muldoon, and they're all organized. The beauty of this, why name them this way, by the way, it's the same reason I numbered rolls of film years ago. If we need to find a near frame or we need to get back into that original shoot, I know right where to look. Now, it's not hard to find the pictures this way. It really isn't. But it's impossible to find the pictures if you don't keep track of them. Keep in mind that this renaming is not done manually. Most amateur and professional image organization software these days, I use Photo Mechanic, a little inexpensive program, It can handle image renaming for you in one way or another, and that's really nice. I use an inexpensive little program called Photomechanic to name, ingest, caption, and take care of my images that way. But there are dozens of good programs out there that do the same thing. Whichever system you choose has to work for you or you won't use it. Remember that. An unused or sloppily used system of shooting and organizing images means that it'll take you a lot of work to find them later on, if you can even find them at all. That's the thing in digital. Good luck finding them at all, ever, if they are not organized. What else? Keep captions with your images. In my film days, I took notes as I shot, and then I wrote formal captions at the end of the day in a little notebook with 2 carbon sheets in it, so I'd have copies. With digital, I embed the captions right into the files themselves upon ingest at the time I bring the pictures into my system. Let's talk for a minute about what makes a good caption. If you've ever taken a journalism class, you know about the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. Good captions list all of those for a given situation. Who, what, when, where, and why. Good caption captures all that, right? Good captions also include a date. If you can't pin down an exact date, at least include the year. You'll be amazed how quickly time goes by and you won't even be able to remember the year that you shot. You might think that you'll never forget the event you're photographing or the year it took place, but you'll be surprised. It vanishes from your memory. Years get shorter as you get older. And they do fly by. So always get the year on there at a minimum. Let's take a look at an example of a bad caption and a good caption for the same image. Let's say I have a picture of cowboys in the Pantanal of Brazil. I bet you I have a picture like that. I do. A bad caption for this would be, cowboys in Brazil's Pantanal region. It's adequate, it's accurate, but why is it bad? Well, it tells us so little about the image that it doesn't really give me much at all, or anybody else that reads it, much beyond the very basics that they already see in the photo. A good caption might read this way: November 15th, 2005. Cowboys, known locally as Pantaneiros, ride horses to round up livestock in Brazil's Pantanal region, about 100 kilometers south of the town of Campo Grande. The Pantanal is a seasonally flooded marsh, often compared to the Everglades, but of South America. Now, I'm typing all this in on my computer, by the way, right? At the end of each day, I'm going to type a long caption and ingest that and brand that into each of the pictures. The caption could go on to say something like, because of the wet ground found throughout the marsh, horses are still the best way to get around. With proper management, the land can be used for both cattle and the region's abundant and highly varied wildlife. Go on and on. I usually try to put contact information at the end too. Contact for this ranch is Daniel de Granville, and then I'd list his phone number, email, whatever. So I really try to work that. I really do. I think about captions quite a bit because they really are lifesavers later. When you want to find out more information, you want to go back to a place, or somebody wants to publish your picture, you need that caption information. Not only does the caption tell me what's going on in the picture though, it gives me context that isn't apparent and details if I want to follow up. So we understand that now, right? Really over-the-top captions, you can't go wrong. You really can't have too much caption information, and you type it in once and it goes onto all your pictures upon ingest. Or you can do it after the fact too, a day or two later. I like to do mine right at the time. So what else about digital? Keep at least one backup of your work. You've heard it a million times. Somebody's hard drive dies, they lose everything. It's a sad story, but true. Digital files can be duplicated with a couple of clicks, and there is no excuse to not have at least one backup of your best images. If you're shooting film, you get your best images scanned and you keep the scans somewhere else, right? If you're shooting digital, have a drive of files you work from and a backup drive that's updated regularly. If you can, man, I like to keep 2 backups, one on site and then one off site, safety deposit box, for example, or at a friend's house or to relatives in another town. Just something to get the stuff out of there and make sure I have multiple copies. If you want to be able to ensure that you'll be able to view and enjoy your photos years from now, this backup routine, boy, it's critical. I cannot stress this. Do not learn the hard way like I did when I was starting out. Hard drives fail, basements flood, discs, optical discs, CDs, DVDs, they get scratched and they are not readable. It's not a question really of if, but when. Just as you wouldn't go on a shoot without an extra camera battery, do not trust your files ever to a single hard drive or a single type of storage medium. We save things in triplicate back in my office, maybe more, depending on how rare those pictures are. I get nervous and we make multiple copies of things. So how to file your images. There are two key considerations that can help you develop your own system, one that works for you. Who will be using the system? If it's just you, then using a method and terms that make sense for you may be okay if it's just you. What are we going to do when you're gone, though, if nobody else understands it? If it's you and others trying to figure out where your work is and how it's filed, you might want to be more general. For example, I took this picture of a horned lizard in Los Angeles years ago, photographed this thing at the foot of the runway at LAX airport, by the way. This is when I did all of my own filing. I didn't have an assistant back then. And so I filed it in my story drawer in my file cabinet under Los Angeles, right? Because I knew to look for it there if ever I needed it. Then I got an assistant one day and she had to come and look for that slide. And she's like, good grief. If I hadn't have been around to let her know that the horned lizard was filed under Los Angeles instead of horned lizard or genus and species, she never would have found it, ever. So ask yourself, is it a relatively easy to use filing system that you have? Ask yourself, if you have to manually drag your digital files from one shoot into 50 different folders to categorize them, you will get lazy in a hurry or stop doing it altogether or never start doing it. Instead of using folders, what about tagging your images with categories and then searching them using an image organization program? That makes so much more sense. It's so good to save time, especially as we get busier and busier during our daily lives. So from shutter to shutdown, since most of you are shooting digitally, let's go step by step through my typical after the shoot download process. I do my best to never let full cards lie around for more than a day without downloading them. I just get too nervous. Do not leave those precious pictures on your camera, please. Get them somewhere else. I download every night at the end of every shoot day, just religiously. Sometimes I download during the day if I have some quiet time. I would never leave a full card overnight. I'm just asking for problems. I'm asking to lose images if that happens. So number one, once a card's full, I store it belly up in my card wallet, as I've said. That allows me to tell at a glance what's full and in need of downloading and what's not. Number two, when I get a break from shooting, I ingest those photos. The ingest process means copying the photos from the compact flash card to my hard drive and backup drives, adding captions, other pertinent information, and renaming the files all in one step. Most image management software offers similar features, so you should be able to find the one that works best for you. Three, the first step in ingesting is to plug in my external hard drive. I put that compact flash card in the card reader, and away we go. Why plug in an external hard drive into my laptop? Because I'm making two copies at once. One goes on my hard drive, safe and sound. That's on my laptop. One's on my laptop. So one on the hard drive that's external, one on the laptop. If I spill coffee on something, or if I drop one of those things, I got a backup there. I have to make two copies on ingest, okay? Number four, I open up my software program and I select the ingest option. 5, I have the option to batch caption images. What a blessing this is. So I do that. When I'm in the field, I often download once a day. So I use one really long caption for everything I've shot to make things quicker. I can use the information from the long caption to therefore make more specific captions later on if I have some time, all right? Now, before I hit the ingest button to start the process, I double check things to make sure the folder and the file names match and are correctly formatted. Once that's all done, I click it, off we go. After a few minutes, the images on the card can be downloaded, copied, captioned, renamed, all in one step. Now, it is so much faster to edit from digital than slides, I can't begin to tell you. And when they're all captioned well, boy, it really is a breeze. And it's a joy. It really is. I know why everybody loves digital. It's so good all the way through. There were a lot of things about film I really didn't care for. The environmental problems with developing it, and the fact that it's slow to edit, it can get X-rayed at airports, the fact that you can't see your pictures until days or weeks later if you're out in the field. Digital's really got it all. It's just really difficult to store well, long term. That's the main problem, the long term. This is the other kind of dirty little secret. You can store it, but I don't know how archival it is, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Toning and image manipulation. It seems like every time an amazing photo appears on the internet, someone will insist it's been manipulated, and many have, really. Digital technology makes manipulation easier, but fakes have been around since the days of the darkroom. There are entire books written about the ethics of photo manipulation. Some you can look at on my reading list if you're interested. But I want to repeat a point that I've made several times now in the course that often goes unspoken. Rather than spending hours and hours fiddling with an image on your computer, why not just shoot it better in the first place? Truly, don't you spend enough time on the computer? I spend way too much time on the computer, personally, and I don't even fiddle with things. If something needs cropped in, why didn't you walk closer to the thing in the first place or just use a longer lens? You don't talk about cropping, shoot it right. Use your feet as your zoom. Does the light look lousy? Move around to find the best light or wait till it improves. Did you miss the moment? Wait until another moment comes along and do it right the second time. An extra hour or two spent in the field practicing techniques you've learned in this course will improve your photography far more than the same hour spent in front of a computer pushing pixels around, really. That said, most professional photographers do make minor adjustments to the color and the contrast and the exposure of their digital images before shipping them off to their editors or to print them. Why? Well, most of us know that we set our cameras to capture the maximum amount of information, and that results in an image file that can be used in a variety of ways, but it usually means the images themselves need a little adjustment here and there to look their best in any given medium. I just want to think of it as straightening a necktie. No major adjustments, just a little here and a little there to make the best impression. That's what we need to do most of the time. I just want the pictures to look how they looked when I was there, really. If you have a specific look you want, you can automate this with a custom profile on your camera or with batch actions, again, to do lots of them. Again, there are dozens of programs you can use and entire books written on how to do this. And things change all the time constantly. So do check out the course bibliography. Now, let's take a look at the difference a little touch-up can make. I'm not advocating that you do this to each and every one of your images. Why would you? Just your keepers, I guess, if they need anything. But if you're showing them to others, it's worth a little extra time to make sure they look their best. So this is a picture that just comes straight out of the camera, straight out. It's a graven image of an iceberg in Antarctica. I captured tons of detail. There's no clipping on the histogram. I know that. The light's soft. But it looks a little blah and washed out. A little bit, doesn't it? So, is it as good as what I saw in person when I was there? No, absolutely not. Why? Well, in a scene like this, our eyes and our brain expect to see true black, clipping, in other words, on the left side of that histogram. When it's not there, the image looks a little washed out and kind of bland, doesn't it? Absolutely it does. Now, look at this. We've got a little bit of adjustment on this same image with 3 adjustments applied. We've told the software to clip the blacks, but just barely, as you can see from the histogram. Just barely. Watch this. Histogram's right there. We've told it to clip the blacks a little bit, by less than a stop. There's also some dust on the sensor when I shot it, and you can see in the upper left-hand corner, the first frame that I showed, you can see dust up there. My sensor was dirty. I'm often shooting outside in really filthy conditions. I get sensor dust all the time. It's a problem. It's like in the darkroom days, you get dust on a negative, show up in the print. I handle it the same way, a little bit of digital spotting, except this time it's done with software instead of a tiny paintbrush and ink. So 3 little adjustments to this picture take it from okay to something more worth looking at. It now looks to my eyes like it did when I was there. The process just took a few seconds, didn't require complicated masking or special techniques beyond what was making it look like what I saw originally. So this is what toning is. It's generally accepted, toning, and even expected in professional circles that your pictures will be toned a little bit back to the way the scene looked in real life. It's expected that the colors you show people will be punched up a little bit and the contrast will be where it needs to be. Again, not a ton, very little, just enough to make it look real, to make it look like you saw it originally. The archiving issue, boy, this is one that could take a while, but in the interest of time, this is my biggest problem when I think of the long-term storage of digital images. This is the biggest problem I have with digital. Nobody wants to talk about this. I'm going to give it to you straight. Digital photography is a wonderful development. I mean, you go to digital, it's hard to go back to film, if not impossible. Once I switched, and I hesitated, I was one of the last geographic photographers to give up film. Once I switched, I've never looked back. I mean, Digital allows me to experiment and try things I might never been able to try shooting film, especially with flash. Wow, you can really craft the light. And we've already talked about the downside and expense of shooting digital files. It's more expensive and complicated. I've had to hire people, but there's an additional issue we need to address. And nobody wants to talk about this. I don't think digital's archival. I don't. And I'm a guy that takes a lot of pride in wanting to believe that my pictures will last for a long time. Put a lot of time and money into these pictures. Travel all over the world. Tell you, I've talked to archivists. They say the only way to make sure an image will be seen by future generations is to put it in a format that doesn't require a machine to read it. That's it. Don't believe it? How many of you still have a functioning 5¼ inch floppy drive? How about zip disks? They also used to be an industry standard. They went out the window with CD burners and USB thumb drives and all these things some of you may not have even heard of. It's only a matter of time before what we're using now is absolutely replaced with something else. This is a problem, isn't it? It's a problem. What do? I'll tell you what we do. There's an easy solution. We make prints. We make prints for photo albums, believe it or not. That's how we do it. My mother has prints from 60 years ago when she was a kid, and they look fine. Even a so-so print in a hastily put together album is better than nothing at all. And that may be as archival as we're going to get right now. You print something on archival paper and you keep it out of the sun. That's it. There are even services now that will print and bind a photo book for you. And we list a few of those in our supplemental materials in this course as well. It's a good way of getting archival duration out of your photographs. What do I mean by archival? I mean 50, 75, 100 years. That's what we're thinking, 100 years. If you want to ensure that your prints are around for years to come, ask your printer whether they use archival materials and methods. It costs more, but if it's a truly special image to you, it's worth it, isn't it? So, where you display your images makes a difference in archivability too. Like I said, no direct sunlight. Don't hang it in direct sunlight. Even with UV glass, it's going to fade. Without UV glass, it's going to fade within weeks or months. Sun really takes its toll. Ask your framer to use archival materials and techniques when you get your photos framed if you feel those photos are worth the extra expense. Again, it may cost more, but it's really worth it to me. Now, the number one mistake I see when it comes to workflow and organization, not being organized before you take your first picture. Don't start shooting and not have this system in place. Have that workflow in place. Remember, year, month, date, subject. You can never go wrong that way because the day changes every day. You can never overlap that way. Make sure your system for telling which cards are full and which aren't makes sense to you. I have my little method, belly up, but if that doesn't make sense to you, come up with a system and be consistent. What will work for you in the field? I've not found a better way than belly up with my cards and ingesting the cards when I can, right away. I don't put it off. Do it properly. Don't delay, because you can get all confused and not know what you've downloaded and what you have. Develop an ingest procedure that works for you and use it every single time. Once you've got one, it's like a warm-up swing in a golf game or a free throw routine in basketball, just something that's part of how you play the game. If something's not working right, you'll be able to fix it then. You'll know when it's not working right. Again, have that caption in place and have your naming structure in place. When you hit ingest, that all gets recorded into the pictures at that moment. Get it all done at once. Get it over with. Life is short. Make the most of it. Your assignment. If you're shooting with film, organize your negatives at least by year, please. At least put the year on there. If you're shooting digital, make a backup drive of all your work. Label all by year, month, day, and subject. You'll be really glad you did, I promise. This is worth a weekend of your time or whatever it's going to take. Now, in our next lecture, we're going to talk about something that's also quite important. Now that you've got your photos downloaded, filed, and very well organized, of course, the next step is choosing the best ones. Which ones are the best? And we will cover editing next. Don't go away.